Main phase.
Hello and welcome to today's stream, where I'll be looking at two Japanese systems from Casio. You might associate Casio more with calculators and keyboards and the like, but back in the day they did put out a few consoles, mostly in Japan, and they did some handheld use, a bit like the Game Watches too, many of which aren't emulated yet. But the focus of today will be two machines they put out in 1983, the PV-1000 and the PV-2000, both of which are quite different machines. The PV-1000 was a console based on architecture I don't think it's seen on any other system. It's kind of tile based rather than proper sprites or anything like that, as far as I know. And it's kind of unique. It stands out as its own thing. And the PV-2000, while it wasn't an MSX clone, it did use the same video chips as the MSX. So a lot of the games on that one are kind of early MSX type games. But yeah, there's not that much out there about these, and they are very rare machines these days. There's plenty of pictures online though. So I mean, I did, for the sake of the channel, go around the internet a little bit and find some pictures for you. So these aren't my photos because I definitely can't afford one of these machines these days. But let's have a look at the first one we'll be looking at, which is the PV-1000. So the PV-1000 looked a bit like this. Well, that's taken up all my screen. So that is a PV-1000. So I found this photo online. So you see it's a fairly standard looking console with a cartridge slot and a joystick. For a quick look, the cartridges, again, this is a photo I found online, look a bit like this. So you've got that's Fighting Bug, which is going to be playing in a bit. So standard looking cartridge, standard looking box really. It's pretty much what you'd expect from a a console of the period, 83. So there you go, there's your two little images. Looks late 60s sexy according to Bob. It didn't last very long on the market. I think the PV-1000 was on the market for about 2 months and then Casio pulled it. So it was definitely not a success, we'll say that much. However, personally, it's a system I've used a few times in MAME, and I think I've even streamed before, but I know a lot of people aren't going to be familiar with it. So as R09 says, it'd be interesting to see them. So in this case, it's sort of new for you in November rather than new for me, because I've been following this one for a little while. For some reason, a lot of the games are marked as unsupported in MAME, but in my testing they work. So maybe it's timing errors or something like that, but they're playable. So you did see Pooyan during the intro, and we will switch back to Pooyan now actually. So this is the PV-1000 version of Pooyan. So it's a Konami game from '82, the original, and it was put to the system, well, when the system was on the market, sort of 82, 83. This could be a short stream, yes, Smedis. I was considering playing the arcade versions as well, but maybe sometimes shorter streams are alright, so, we'll just play the PV-1000 games and the PV-2000 games. But, let's see, jolly little tunes. And so I don't know if it has any sprites at all, or if this is all done in tiles. I don't know if there's a tile map viewer. There's no tile map viewer hooked up, so I can't actually check. I've not looked in the driver, but a lot of things do move in tiles. So I would have to check for sure. Maybe it's got some limited capability. Now, you probably get used to things looking a bit like this. This is kind of what the hardware is capable of. So if you played the original arcade, you probably see this is actually a pretty good port. I mean, those do look like poos you are collecting and throwing at things, and I don't think they're meant to be poos, but that's just how it looks. You do like the design of the PV-1000. Yes, it's a nice... It reminds me a bit of the Mega Drive, actually. Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. I think they're meant to be nuts from my memory of the arcade game. But in terms of, you know, the game being fast and responsive, the controls are really responsive. Everything moves as you'd expect. And this is actually a pretty good port of Pooyan, I have to say. You know, I've played many bad versions of Pooyan and ports. I don't like the NES version that much, and that appeared hacked up in many plug-and-play units. Whereas this version, it does a good job, I have to say. This was the first game on the system, cartridge 1, and we'll probably go through the cartridges in the order they were numbered. So, don't know how long we're going to spend on each game, but there's only a small library to go through, so maybe a bit longer than normal. I'm not sure. Music is a little repetitive, but I don't know, it sounds good to me. With my gameplay, who knows? I did already lose a life by looking at the chat. But, yeah, I think Pooyan is one of those arcade games that gets overlooked these days. Yeah, to me, it's one of those, you know, it's up there as a classic with Packn and the like, but I take that back about Famicom Pooyan. Is it actually a better game than I'm giving it credit for, then? Because I really never enjoyed it that much. Maybe it's just because I'm so used to the hack versions, which tended to be awful. Ooh. Look, they're trying to push the rock on me this time. You know, what was it, like a cat and wolf, or dog and wolf, or something? I don't know. It was something and wolf. It's in those terrible wireless tennis and the like. I already lost another life. Now you are meant to take out multiple enemies with the nuts or whatever it is you're throwing, and I'm failing to do that. Yeah, I think they've done a really good job of the graphics here, to be fair. And it highlights what's important. Everything that's important, every element that's important, is very clear to see. The shields, you know, that stop you hitting the balloons themselves, the rocks that are being thrown, they don't animate as smoothly, but, you know, it's got that clarity. And sometimes when you've got a simple arcade-style game, what you want is clarity. Yeah, maybe the music could have been a bit better, you know, not quite so repetitive. I'm sort of getting Booty on the Spectrum vibes of like a 10-second loop repeated, but it's okay. But nice simple game and a good port. I said before, you know, if they released a collection of CV-1000 games on a cartridge for a new system like the Switch or something like that, I'd happily buy it because my impressions are generally pretty good. Yeah, for an 83 game. It says copyright 82. I don't know if the system was actually released late 82, or if that's just the copyright from the original game, or when it was developed. But yeah, the system was on the market about 83, for about 2 or 3 months, according to sources. So, you know, there's about 15 games. 15 games in 2 or 3 months isn't bad. But, you know, that's one reason the system is now so rare. Yes, I don't know if it's entirely tile-based. I should have really researched the driver before, but a lot of the games do suggest it's mostly tile-based. But, yeah, Pooyan, should we give it one more go before we move on? So this is probably going to be quite a short stream, but I think, personally, they could have easily done a budget version of this hardware for the arcades and put this out, and people would have quite happily played it. Because it does perfectly capture the fast-paced arcade feel. It doesn't feel bad. It doesn't feel like a port where the gameplay's compromised. There we go, took 3 of them out at once. I think that's one of the things you get with these Japanese ports. Maybe because they had access to the original game resources, whereas outside of Japan, people were just left to look at the game and reprogram it. But the Japanese ports often keep a lot more of the gameplay intact than the ones we got over here. They feel like official ports, not, oh, we played the game in an arcade and tried to reproduce it. It was released in October of 83, so maybe the 82 date is from development. Is there a problem? I'm not aware of a problem, Carlo? Yeah, you can figure the game out after about 5 seconds, which is what you want for an arcade game. Some arcade games you play them, and they're good games, but they didn't do well in the arcade because they're too complex. Well, no, Carlo, I'm not aware of any problems. If you mean YouTube, I'm not getting any drop frames. If the volume's too loud, let me know, because it's quite loud in my ears, but I did turn it down a bit. Yeah, most of the home ports over here, no resources were provided. They just got, here's an arcade machine. Or not even that, sometimes it's like, you go to your arcade, you play the game, and you'll make a port of it. That's all they got. So the actual developers were spending their like 10p's playing the arcade machines just to try and see everything in the arcade machine so they could do a port of it. It's been said many times that, you know, that happened. And then you got some clever ones. I think it was Final Fight on the Amiga, which didn't turn out that well. Was it on the Spectrum? Oh, I think it was the Amiga where they actually dumped the ROMs off the arcade board and ripped the graphics out of them, and then realised, you know, they had to compromise anyway and reduce everything to about 3 frames of animation, but they didn't get the original code or anything else. Maybe some of the clever developers studied the code. I'm pretty sure the CPC Donkey Kong port must have been based on studying the arcade code, because it's that close. But they were given nothing. Even for the American games, from what I'm told, they were given nothing. It just, you know, the code and how things were coded was almost considered a secret, something protected. You don't just give your secrets away, and so it was left for people to figure out how to put them themselves. That's what I've been told anyway, and what many people have said in interviews. It's like, we had nothing. You know, we got a license, that was it. Beyond the license, make your own way, do your own thing, and the companies weren't too fussy over what got released, which is how we end up with so many bad ports. Whereas in Japan, I think there was a much closer working relationship with the original companies. And say that was Casio's Pooyan port of Konami's game. So it's 82 at the bottom, but since the system, the Aussie guy, was released in October of 83, I think it was the same time as the PV-2000, it must have been released in 83. We did see that with some of the Dragon games, actually. They had like 81 copyrights and the machine wasn't released then. But that's because they're probably from the Coco versions. Yeah, at the time we enjoyed the ports anyway for the most part, and except the really bad ones. It's just they don't hold up today as well. Some of them do. I mean, some of the ports ended up better than the arcade originals. You talk about things like Roc'n, the home ports actually got things right that the arcade game got wrong. It did happen. But for the most part, the home ports missed the subtle details. I mean, even as good as something like the Rainbow Islands ports were for the Spectrum and the Amiga, they didn't have all the hidden secrets and bonus stuff, and kind of resorted to random number generation rather than some of the real mechanics, because they had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. Anyway, we'll move on to Game 2, which was a port of Super Cobra. This one says Konami 81, so I guess they've gone with the original arcade release dates here rather than the PV-1000 release dates, because obviously the PV-1000 was not released in 81, and the game wouldn't have been developed in 81, so it's one of those things where the copyright date on the screen is clearly not when this port was released. Pooyan Arcade was designed by Takuro Fujiwara, who was also behind Ghosts and Goblins, Mega Man, and Resident Evil. That's a nice little piece of history you got there for us, Aussie guy. Thank you for that. So, you know, humble beginnings, but a fun game nevertheless. Hey Moboa, welcome. I hope you're doing well. And so we're going to start up Super Cobra now and see how this one holds up. So this looks more primitive with everything in 8x8. Oh dear. 8x8 tiles. It's kind of funny actually, because you would have thought that Super Cobra itself was a less advanced game than Pooyan, but here I think you can see that the hardware doesn't really have scrolling. Although I'm not sure that's any excuse for the bullets and bombs going straight down. Yeah, I think they did keep the original arcade copyrights. Maybe to make it look more authentic. This is what you'd expect. Yes, Smedis. This is more what I'd expect from an early tile-based game too. And these missiles are mean. I swear the missiles in the original don't do that. And it doesn't even respond that frequently to your bomb. It's this is a much worse port, which is surprising, but as you say, early tile-based hardware. Scrolling. I don't know why the sprites are so small though, or the graphics. Shooting things that move in tiles is always fun. This looks more like a sort of a game a basic game. So yeah, after the the highlight of Pooyan, we are now playing a very rough port of Super Cobra. There's some that do veer off, but not as jarring. Yeah, those ones felt almost like they were homing in on me. They weren't, but they felt like they were. We'll see how far we can get though. So I want to give about 10 minutes to Jank or Jewel. Yeah, I think this one might be Jank, Bob. Can we have any N words that are equivalent to Jank or Jewel? Beyond not very good. Nasty and well, we could have nasty and nice, but that's not the most creative, is it? Naff, yeah, naff is a bit more British. We could have naff. Neat or naff. Neat or no! That's also a possibility. Yeah, this one... I don't know, this doesn't make the PV-1000 look like the most amazing system in the world ever. I'm still really surprised that it only lasted on the market a couple of months though. From some of the games I've seen, it deserved a better chance. Unless, Casio thought it had peaked with the games that were released. Which is possible. I don't think it offers much to make better games than the ones we've seen. Although there's no real active, homebrew scene around it to prove me wrong on that. If something like the Amstrad CPC had been, cancelled after a year, we would have thought that was pretty naff too. The Adventure Vision version seems better than this. The Adventure Vision version, apart from being in red and black and very liney, isn't too bad. Yeah, this is a very rough port of Super Cobra. But, game over. We shall try again. So, if we are doing nice or naff, I'm guessing most people are going to be thinking this one's pretty naff. And I wouldn't blame them. Say, while Pooyan, I could understand if they'd put the version that we played in the arcades, and people would have quite happily played it, much as, people quite happily played Sega System E games, which was Master System based. This one, if you put it in the arcade, probably not. I mean, there were some pretty rough rip-offs of Scramble in the arcade. There was Mauzac, which I think was based from New Zealand, which isn't emulated properly yet. That's quite rough. But I think this would have been worse. The annoying thing is the controls are really quite unresponsive. You can only have one bomb on the screen, and then it takes like about half a second before you can spawn another even after it's vanished. It's kind of nasty. Naff just means not very good, Bob. It's probably a very British word. Yeah, I mean, there's no star field either. You can't blame them because the hardware doesn't natively draw stars, but there's just nothing. I think Super Cobra had a star field. I know Scramble did. They're always very similar. There's very similar games. Now you can go back to they're shooting at me stage. Neat or no? So there aren't even any cows to bomb. I mean, look at this empty field here. Look at the potential to put cows in it. I think that they missed a trick here. Had this game got cows, it would have at least scored half a point more. Yeah, I'm going to give this one a no too. So, Casio's version of Super Cobra. No, not really. Not really at all. I think we'll move on from that one. And go to a game that has been mentioned quite a few times in recent streams, actually. When we did Time Bandit on the Dragon streams, for example, this one was mentioned. This is Tutankahm, another Konami game. So it looks like Casio had quite a close working relationship with Konami at the time. It was a bit naff, wasn't it, Colo? So Tutankahm. The Sword M5 port of Super Cobra looks better. I might have to do a Sword M5 stream at some point, Aussie guy, because that's another system that gets overlooked a lot. But Tutankahm. Konami made games for everything ever. You see, this has got nice smooth movement to this main sprite, at least. So I think, yeah, when it was said that Time Bandit was much closer to Tutankahm, I can kind of see that now. This feels like it was more Gauntlet before Gauntlet, and it's not a game I've ever played much of. But that makes sense as why Time Bandit was so much earlier than Gauntlet and had Gauntlet-like mechanics. It's because it was based on this, clearly. Come on, I need to get out of here. She can only shoot left and right, which is a problem. Konami made games for every Japanese machine ever. Before they stopped making games entirely, yeah. Or, you know, decided to even ruin the Pro Evolution series by doing some stupid online e-football thing, whatever it's called. Which is absolute junk. Teleport. But Time Bandit did add a bit more to the formula here. This is a side-scrolling shoot-em-up where you're just trying to get from place to place, from door to door. Yeah, this is an unusual game, actually. There are other games similar. There are things like Cavalon, which is kind of an obscure game, and Hero, which was a CVS game. We get the treasure, move from area to area, kill the bad guys, and it's not easy though. You've not got much room to manoeuvre. They released some awful DOS ports as well. I've not actually played those R09. Maybe I'll have to, because as we saw with the Pinball Dreams 2, I can run old DOS stuff in MAME. Now the bats are more difficult to shoot because they're small. That bird was going to get me. Yeah, everything moves in blocks. I've already got a key, so I can't get another key. I need to go to the door. So yeah, the same as Time Mechanic, you can have Time Bandit. You can have one key at a time. So it's quite clear that Time Bandit was based on this, even though it added its own mechanics. Yeah, with the enemies moving in blocks, You don't have much wiggle room. It is tight. You have to pick your moment and you have to run for it. See, I've not got that gem down there because that looked too difficult to get. Konami did do Silent Hill and PT, even though, you know, they wanted to erase PT from history entirely. Which is kind of funny because it's probably one of the better things they did in recent years. It's always funny when you want to erase your best product from history. But that's Konami. There's no animation on the main character. Oh yeah, 2 keys again. I have to use one down here. You do have the smart bomb, which I'm wasting from time to time. But clearly, if it does have sprites, and I'm not sure it does, only my character is the sprite. Everything else is clearly in tiles. Yeah, Konami do just make garbage now. You know, the Apache slot machines and everything. I should really pay attention to the screen. This is why I always want them to be like a secret. Oh, there's no secret room. Yeah, now I'm in trouble because you can't fire or put down. It's the type of game where if you see an exit on the left, you think maybe there's a little secret, but there's no secret. So let's try again. Now, I was tempted to look at the arcade ports in this stream too, but I decided against it. I think we'll just do pure Casio systems. It is quite tough though. You want Racing Force and Thrill Drive on consoles. I can't see it happening. Konami can't even be bothered with current stuff. Which is a shame. I don't think they're going to be working out how Racing Force work themselves, and I know there's a pretty decent retro scene in Japan now and lots of re-releases, but often the more complex ones are ignored until basically we figure them out. So yeah, I do need to play the arcade version of this. I do like how the wall patterns look a bit like ghosts too. It gives it a sort of spooky feel. Not spooky enough for Halloween streams, but still. It's a cross between ghosts and magic lamps. But yeah, I would say this one was actually a decent port. I would say I'm not very good at it. But there we go. So, this was game 3 of the system. And we are about half an hour into the stream. Yep, I think this might be quite a short stream, but that's fine by me. Now, we'll go with another game from Konami. This is the PV-1000 version of Amidar. You looked at a game that's a bit like Amidar the other week, one of the Cuthbert ones on the Dragon, but this is an official port of Amidar, which is basically a surround the squares with you know, your monkey character and avoid the teddy bears or whatever they're meant to be. You can and don't be as terrible as I am. How does the arcade scroll? I guess the arcade hardware has scrolling support, whereas the PV-1000 does not. Is he talking in technical terms, counters and the like, start offsets for layer drawing and offsets into, I don't know, it's quite complex. There were two unreleased games that may or may not exist. Sometimes the word unreleased gets branded around about when people just mean rare, limited release. So I don't think, especially Frontline, I don't think it's confirmed as unreleased, just maybe quite uncommon. Yeah, Tutankahm screws horizontally and you get a bit more room. Which may make the arcade easier, but I guess the arcade makes itself more difficult in other ways. This is quite tricky, because again it feels quite cramped. And you can tell things are tile-based, because there's the character sprites get blanked out when you're close to them. You can make them jump to put. They're a little bit faster than you too, unfortunately. You can make them jump. You do have a limited number of jumps, as you can see from the cherries up top. There we go. Yeah, Juno versus frame buffered, as are things like Defender with a blitter. That's not right. Yeah, and Taito's Kicks hardware is frame buffer based. Basically, if it's frame buffer based, you can draw the individual pixels, and you usually have some sort of line drawing blitter to accelerate drawing, so things aren't quite as slow. I mean, Space Invaders is a frame buffer based hardware too. Yeah, I don't know if game number 8 is meant to be Galaga or not, Aussie guy. You say it's rumoured. It's possible. No, they were working with Namco and Konami. I think people have just made educated guesses. But obviously the system and the games, even the common games now, are very, very expensive. Yeah, this game does show some of the limitations of the system. So when you get close to the enemies, you can see tiles vanish. Likewise, when the enemies pass each other, you can see the tile based. But yeah, it's not too bad, is it? I'm just really bad at it. That's no good. Yeah, it only really shows the spots being cleared in the corners in an obvious way, which makes it not quite as clear what you're meant to be doing. It's a very simple game. But, you know, it's one of Konami's answers to Pac-Man, really, isn't it? Yes, Aussie guy, they did release some actual MSX clones after the PV-2000. I think that's probably why the PV-2000 was quite short-lived. It's because they probably just realised, well, if we're going to do an MSX-like piece of hardware, we may as well just do an actual MSX-compatible system. And you got a much bigger library that way. Doing a custom system based around almost MSX tech is not the best business decision. We'll get to PV-2000 later, though. Anyway, maybe sooner than I thought, because I'm not doing very well at Amidar. But It's a playable clone. You know, I think back in '83 you could have enjoyed that one. It's fast, it's smooth, it's challenging. No roller level. Unless I just didn't get to one. Collectors especially want systems that hardly anybody wanted in the first place. That's what makes them collectible, Bob. That's why we should all make our own systems and release them, and our own awful games. And people will want them in the future. It's like the same with the Dragon stuff. A few people were talking to me afterwards saying, oh yeah, I'd really like to pick up a Dragon, some software. And then they saw the prices they were going for at the moment. It's like, I don't want to pick up a Dragon, the software. It's they get expensive. So, I've got a Namco port this time. So support is only preliminary, apparently. Again, it's got the original '82 copyright. And this is Dig Dug. Everybody likes a bit of Dig Dug. So shall we see how Dig Dug plays? It maintains the original game design of only playing music when you move, which on the original works because you've got a few sound effects that play when you're not moving. It's sort of, if you're moving it plays the music, if you're not moving it plays the sound effects, but when you are moving it still plays some sound effects. It's a really odd way of balancing the audio and doing the audio in the original game, but it somehow works. It's just one of those really curious things. You would have thought people just think it's a bug that if you're not moving no music plays, but there's something about the way the music is done. It never feels wrong when it stops playing. You only realise it stops playing when you're not moving if you sit and think about it. But in these ports, you tend to really notice because the rest of the sound design isn't there. The roller level was the second level, but they could have reordered things a bit. Now you hold the button to pump them in this. That is also important. Yeah, I mean, when I was buying up plug-and-play stuff in Japan, it was really, really cheap until people realised there was interest in it from the emulation scene, at which point people just really upped the prices. I mean, we got like about 100 E-Cara cartridges for something like $20. And yet over here people want $50 for one cartridge. And now in Japan people want a lot too. At least last time I checked, and it's like, well, we're not paying that much for the remaining cartridges. But yeah, until there's an interest in things, they tend to be quite cheap in Japan. After there's an interest in things, they get really expensive. So yeah, I don't know why this is marked as not working, or supported equals no in the software list, because to me this is a working game. Maybe it runs too fast, I don't know, but clearly this is a playable game. The pump mechanic is a bit strange. Yeah, you just hold it. It doesn't quite play like the arcade version, but still, it doesn't play too badly. Bobunosuke. Oops. Yeah, I mean, it is clearly tile-based again, but it does look... You don't do that, that's silly. It does look good. Can I actually get this? No, I think you can't really do that that move with the moving in tiles. Final lap master. Is Final Lap Master the unreleased lost prototype of Final Lap? Yes, it is significantly harder to drop rocks on anything. Oh, there we go. There's also missing the flowers at the top when you complete a round, which is a shame, because the flowers I always thought added something. It's like you're growing a little garden every time you complete a stage. Tiny details, but ones that visually make a difference. You know what your progress is beyond a round number at the top, because you've got a row of flowers. Final Fantasy Lap. That's an interesting crossover. I think I glitched the pump with a rock. That wasn't the best. Eat rock. Don't run into those either. So it's one of those ports that pretty much implements the basics of the game, but not the additional details, I would say. You're not a fan of this version of the tune, J. Ray. It is a little painful on the ears, yes. I mean, the sound chip is the video chip, which is the NEC D65010G031. It's an all-in-one sort of sound video chip as far as I know. I think it does, is it 3-channel audio? But like I said, the sound design in the original Dig Dug is fantastic. You don't really appreciate it that much until you play the ports, which do often get it a little bit wrong. Yeah, I always preferred Mr. Doobob personally. Dig Dug always felt like non-scrolling boulder dash. I don't know, the game never clicked with me really. I can appreciate it and the little details that are there, and the way the enemies try to escape, and all these, these ideas that you see in quite a few Namco games. I mean, say Tinkle Pit has this whole escaping enemy thing much later. But personally, I prefer Dig Dug 2 as a game. But I can understand why Dig Dug is popular and was ported to loads of things. And this is a bit of a bare bones port, I have to admit. They could have very easily added the flowers. I don't think they could have done a better job with the audio, because the audio capabilities are quite limited. It's not as close as the Pooyan that we started with. Pooyan so far has been the best game, I would say, followed by Tutankahm, then Amidar and Super Cobra. I don't know where I'd place this one. Obviously it's better than Super Cobra. Maybe better than Amidar, so sort of in the middle, this one I'd say so far. Yeah, Dig Dug 2 is just an interesting concept with breaking the ground and the islands falling away. Dig Dug is sort of feels proto-boulder dashy, and Mr. Do did it better. Anyway, although Dig Dug does have, say, really nice audio design, great sprites, I don't know. I can't be too harsh on it. We've got another Namco game next anyway, which oddly is a more primitive game than Dig Dug, but Warp and Warp, or just Warp Warp as the Rockola port was known. Oh, we've got a chunky Casio logo this time. You like Dig Dug 1 better, do you, Mr. Out Heaven? That's fair enough. A lot of people do really like Dig Dug 1. So this is the game where the enemies have their tongues stuck out. And again, you can see it's very much tile-based movement here. There's nothing that even tries to look like a smooth moving sprite on this one. and the audio design is maybe even more painful. Now we can, so it says warp on that, and we can walk through it, and we get this stage, which turns into the Bomberman type game. So yeah, it's Bomberman before Bomberman. And I think this game tends to get overlooked in that sense, because everybody talks about Bomberman, but yeah, this is very clearly the same idea as Bomberman. Unfortunately, it gets a bit tricky at this point. There's an MSX port, is there? I might have to look at that. I mean, this is probably not that similar to the ISX port, because the PV-1000 hardware is quite different to the MSX, unlike the PV-2000 hardware, which is got the same video chip. So this is one of the only early games I can remember that has an enemy counter around the screen. You can see the number you've got left to kill by the counter on the side of the screen. And I think it also shows which corner they're going to spawn in. Yeah, if you go through the warp, I guess you're meant to warp to like a different universe where the mechanic's different, but the remaining enemies are the same. It's like, yeah, they've tried to squeeze two games into one. But you do have control over when the mechanic changes. It is an odd one. I mean, Namco were clearly experimenting with different ideas at this point. Warp, 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 warp. And then it's very easy to just die and lose all your lives like this. The audio is forgettable at best, unfortunately. I mean, I think even in the original game it is. I don't remember anything noteworthy about Warp's audio. Yeah, you can just ignore the warp. You see, I ignored the warp entirely and I just completed it without warping. The Famicom version gives you exploding bullets. That does sound odd. I'm sure staying here is not an advisable strategy, but I'm going to do it anyway. Uh-oh. So yes, early Namco. Let's give it one more try. Fight 5. Fight is the number of lives you have. Everything kills you. I wish this one only made a noise when you moved, like Dig Dug. It'd be a lot more tolerable. Yeah, I'm getting a headache from the noise, to be honest, Yeah, Warp and Warp. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the original. Again, it's better than the Super Cobra port, but I think worse than all the others. I don't know. Can't really rate that one highly myself. It's a bit sharp on the ears for an arcade game. Arcades often had softer tones, or I don't know. That one was really getting to me. That's why I turned it off. The audio more so than the gameplay. So Turpin. Look, it's another Konami game from '81. Again, it moves in tiles. Get the question mark. Take it home. Get that one. Take it home, because the home moves around. And drop the mine if you want to. Oh yes, we have a Naughty Boy report coming up. That is one thing. Now, you may know this game as Turtles, which is the export name for it, but it's Turpin. We did look at the Spectrum port of this on the Spectrum stream, the recent one, which is actually really good. But again, this one's making no attempt to hide that it's just tile based. I don't think it's a terrible port. I just think it's a very simple port, this one. And again, yeah, the audio though, the audio is maybe the worst thing about this. It's a shame they didn't try and go for smooth movement like we saw with some of the other ones. We've got no bombs left. Of course they come and get me. But yeah, basically you go to a question mark. If you're lucky you get a turtle, then you take it to the exit, which moves around. If you're unlucky you get another enemy, which I don't know if it's a cockroach or what. I wonder why more Atari games didn't have music. I don't know. I never really associate Atari with music in general, even their arcades. Obviously Marble Madness has its quite bizarre tune, but other than that, most Atari games, yeah, you're right, there aren't that many with iconic tunes. It's not like Sega with Outrun or anything like that. But the same for the Williams games. Defender, no music of note. Robotron, no music of note. It might just be an American thing. Whereas, over here on our 8-bit computers, you often had games with great music which were terrible games. I don't know. It's one of those things. Different regions had different priorities. You're referring to, the 2600 games. That's probably down to the lack of processing power on the 2600 and lack of video power. I think you had to spend most of your CPU time doing video. You probably didn't have time for music. Are you Leo or Mikey? I'm not Mikey from Mikey and Janie streams. I did join their stream the other day. You see, it's a very basic game. Collect things, go to the exit. It lacks the cutscene at the start of the original. David and Cow. Is that a wedding that is yet to happen? Somewhere in a field. Possibly at a music festival. Yes, the sound chip maybe is not cut out for music. I mean, Pooyan's music wasn't too bad though. To be fair, I could put up with Pooyan's music. This, on the other hand, yeah, it's doing my head in already. Can't get more than one question mark at once. Again, a very simple arcade maze game. And, again, it gets the basic gameplay right, but it's just unspectacular in its execution. It's playable. You can enjoy it. Maybe you'd want to turn the volume down a bit, but yeah, you can enjoy it. I would say I've definitely played worse versions of this game. Floor 4. Doesn't really change much though, it's just the same thing repeated over and over again, but with more enemies, or faster enemies, to make it more difficult. It's more of a test of endurance than anything else. But I think if you want to study a game and the basics of a game, then looking at things like these ports is a good idea. It takes away all the the flashier bits of the original and just gives you the pure gameplay, and it lets you see what the game boils down to if you take away all the flashy fancy bits, and you can see if the actual basic concept works as a game. Yeah, Paperboy 720 Zybots. I mean, I don't really associate Paperboy or Zybots with music either, but I don't know, it's just one of those things. Maybe the Atari sound is just not one that I associate much personally with anything. Although I did play Paperboy mostly on like the Spectrum and the CPC, where I think it was silent. So that was game 7, Turpin. I would say it's better than Warp Warp, better than Super Cobra, maybe better than Amidar, but otherwise a bit too simple. I mean, you play it for a bit, but you can't play it for too long. Pit Fighter. I mean, we could talk about how Atari licensed lots of Namco games, ones involving cars and the like, but yeah, we should talk about Pit Fighter. Absolutely. So there was no Game 8. Game 8 is the one that is rumoured to be Galaga, which may exist as a limited release, may not, whatever. Game 8 is not dumped. Game 9 is, to my knowledge, not an arcade port. You think Amidar works better than Turtles? Possibly. I mean, Turtles was just the same level repeated over and over. Amidar had the bonus round, which didn't add much, but I don't know. I don't know. So this is the first time we're going to see this game tonight, because it was also on the other system. Again, preliminary, but it seems to work. Pachinko UFO. You know what this is going to be? I'm pretty sure those are the same graphics that we saw in Pooyan as well for the rocks, but yeah. It is the thing Konami sold its soul to. A very early indication of where they were going. You hold the button down, the longer you hold it down, the further your ball goes. And then it's just sort of random, and it bounces off all the pins and triggers things in the playfield. Now, as far as I know, there's minimal skill, if any, involved in these games, because they are basically just Japanese gambling games. So, yeah, the real things use physical pins, physical balls, and so maybe there's some real luck involved. But I think that the layouts tend to be designed in such a way that the odds are always stacked against you. Personally, I think the best thing to come of this type of game mechanic is Caves You Poco, which also has the holder button for a while and the ball will fly a certain distance. But that didn't have a bunch of pins and random balls bouncing for you to win prizes. Yes, you sure love to play a gambling game based around real world physics on a system that does everything with choppy tower based movements, Medas. I think that is what most people felt if they had this game. It's thrilling, isn't it? I mean, we can do loads of balls at once. Well, I think 5. If we want to make it a bit more exciting, look at this. Look at this now. Oh, I've got 5 in play, so I can't do any more. There are even arcade ones, Aussie guy. There's a few in MAME that do it with a video. One of them on, I think, Seta Hardware is unfortunately still a bad dump. But yeah, I mean, I can't complain. We had fruit machine simulators on our 8-bit computers. And I suppose if you were in Japan and you went to arcade and you saw these things, you might want to replicate the experience at home, but this is it. I mean, there's not you can't even fire from the second side using the second button. It's not like there's 2 firing positions. It's one button where you just do this. It's got a level counter, so maybe it expects you to be able to do better. I don't know. I think my t-shirt expresses how I feel when we're playing these games. You will die alone pressing a button on the keyboard. Yeah, this is practically an LCD game, you're right. It's just... That's it. You've seen the game. I know it's got a level counter, but I don't think anything really changes. So we'll move on. Now we'll move on to a game that, curiously, was renamed for the PV-1000. This is the one I showed the cartridge picture of earlier. This is Fighting Bug, licensed from Universal. So what is Fighting Bug? It's like a miniaturized version of Ladybug. And you know what's the best thing about this? It doesn't have music. It is not destroying my ears with every second it plays. You need a game where you play as a Pachinko ball. Not sure about that, Bob. So, I don't know why they renamed it Fighting Bug, because, to be honest, if there's one thing this game doesn't have, it's fighting. It just has schools you avoid, and a maze where you collect lots of X's. and you don't do that. Also, like Dig Dug, it has it has borders, because for some reason they didn't want to use all the screen space. You're sticking with Mahjong when it comes to traditional Japanese games, Aussie guy. We will be covering a Mahjong game very shortly, although I will not be playing it because I don't know how to play Mahjong. By covering, I mean we'll probably load it up and go, it's Mahjong, and then quit. But, yeah, it's got the basics of Ladybug. Personally, I think I prefer the Falcon Dora-chan thing, which is like Ladybug but a bit more advanced. But that didn't get ported as far as I know to anything. Ladybug, of course, is one of the first games that ran in MAME. I believe it was supporting the very first version of MAME. So, in that sense, it's a game with its own little bit of history in the emulation scene. You're sticking with excessive drinking when it comes to Japanese games, traditional Japanese games. It's not a bad one either, Bob. Let's thank Japan for the excessive drinking. Now, again, this is a very simple port, but this one, I kind of like it. Maybe because it's not got the annoying music. Yeah, I think there was a Mahjong game when everything, you're right, oh no. Oops, I do that, sorry. My mistake, I hit the Windows key, which is not a good idea. Oh, if you collect the skull, you die, by the way, just in case you weren't aware. But yeah, this is a pretty nice port, Aussie guy. It's got the basics of the gameplay. It's nice and simple. You can see what makes the game what it is, and you can play it. It just uses the joystick. I don't think there's any use for the button at all. Collect the dots, avoid the skulls. Also, the enemies get killed by the skulls, so if you can lead them into the skulls, that works in your favour. If you can't, then avoid the enemies. Don't do that. A Mahjong game is coming up, Bob. Yes. Not quite yet, but in a little bit. Yeah, I don't mind the PV-1000. I think there are some nice, simple implementations of the arcade games that are well worth studying. I think had Casio not pulled the system from the market so early, we might have seen more. But, you know, you can't change the past. It's missing the spawn count around the border. Yeah. Again, it is interesting. Maybe I should have been playing the arcade versions too, just to compare. Maybe I'll have to do that in the future, but I sort of wanted to stick with a pure PV-1000, 2000 stream this time. My skill will be hitting random buttons and turning the game off, Bob. I know it's probably something I should learn so I can demonstrate the games better, but honestly, it doesn't interest me. Yeah, why did they rename it to Fighting Bug? I mean, to me that makes no sense. It's Ladybug. Ladybug is the game everybody knew. Ladybug is the popular game. Ladybug as a name of a game is what would have sold games. So the whole rename to Fighting Bug, at least to me, unless the game was also released in Japan as Fighting Bug in the first place, seems completely illogical. Yes, the random buttons to psych out my opponents, make them think I don't know what I'm doing, the ultimate hustle. Because really I am a Mahjong expert. I never lose my clothes or anything else. And no, I'm not playing strip Mahjong with me losing my clothes, because for one, YouTube would not approve. Unfortunately, this is probably a little bit easy. Yeah, okay, I think we'll cut out of that one for now. Now we're going to, well, we're sticking with Universal, in fact, and we're going to an older Universal game. Again, this is Mox's preliminary. Maybe it runs too fast, I don't know. Space Panic. One of those where MAME's arcade emulation still doesn't have sound because it's all discrete. But it is your classic game of dig hole, let enemy fall in hole, dig another hole, don't get caught by enemy. Don't do what I'm doing right now because it makes it look like you don't know how to play the game, which is not strictly true. I do know how to play the game, I'm just not very good at it. Oh look, down you go through 3 holes, which for these enemy types doesn't matter at all, but later enemy types you do have to throw them down multiple holes. This is another game that was cloned, imitated, ported many times to many different systems under many different names, both officially and unofficially. And again, you can tell it's all tile based. When the enemies go near the ladders, they make squares around the ladders. Screw down my hole. Yeah, Seta did milk Super Real Mahjong a little bit, didn't they? I mean, at least they evolved the series with the games. They changed things a bit, and often used technology that they didn't use elsewhere initially. It's almost like some technology was tried out with the Mahjong games before being used for better projects. Don't know how true that is, but that's how it felt anyway. Now, personally, I think if they were going to port a Universal game, they should have gone with Mr. Do or Mrs. Dynamite, or something a bit more advanced than Space Panic, but Space Panic itself is quite an important game. Come on, you've got to fall in one of these holes. Come on. Be boring then. Yeah, this is one of the first platform games, I would say. Yes, Meadows. I know some people say it doesn't count because you can't jump and you're just digging holes and it could be done side on, overhead. But yeah, I think, to me, because it's got gravity, this does count as the first platform. These blue ones are the ones you need to send down 2 holes, so there we go. Oops. Well, I killed the blue one, then died. But yeah, to me this would be a real contender for first ever platformer. You are correct. I think it's just Nintendo fans that say, oh no, Donkey Kong was the first ever platformer because you could jump. But these are clearly ladders and platforms, and you can clearly fall down, there's clearly gravity, so yeah, I think it's a platformer. It's a very early game, isn't it, Smedis? That's the thing. It's not going to be a spectacular game port because it was just a very simple game in the first place. It's like Space Invaders. There's many good ports, but at the end of the day, they're still just Space Invaders. And fine as it was, successful as it was, the original only gets you so far. You have to add things to it to make it worth playing, really. It's just been done better so many times. But we will play this for a little bit, and then we'll move on. And then we'll get to the fantastic port of Naughty Boy, which was definitely more ambitious. Space Panic was largely inspired by Hyankayo Alien. Yeah. Which would say that was Overhead, and Sega did re-release that as Digger, didn't they? And then obviously we had Nichibutsu's take on it, which was Whore Kid whatever, because I can't remember the name. Which was also released as a Doraemon game on the PC. Now, one of my favourite games does actually follow this formula, which is Wanny Wanny World on the Mega Drive. But again, that does take this formula and does more with it, rather than just being the basic formula. Come on. There we go. %, of every multi-carts menu. Which one's that? Let's smell this. Oh, didn't do it in time. Again, that's the thing with a lot of these PV-1000 games, that they're okay if you want to play them for 5-10 minutes. I don't think you're going to play them for much longer. Uh-oh, no. No, the movement is too unpredictable, and a lot of the time you are just waiting for them. And you can't dig in all the places you want to dig all the time. Can't get to you in time. With this one, you've got to make sure you've got 2 holes. With some of the other games that are like this, the enemy movement is much more predictable and you can reliably lead them into the holes. This one, it doesn't really feel like you can. Yeah, Kid No Whore Daisakusen, that's the one, Spiders. You're saying the NES menu music is stolen from that. See, I'm not familiar with the NES version of that, actually. I still do wonder if there's an official version like called Booby Kids rather than the obvious graphic hack we've got. Unfortunately, the graphic hack of that one tends to get sold as the official version now, and it clearly isn't, because it's a really lazy graphic hack. Oh, I got nothing. I got. I thought I'd been got earlier. I got the high score though. That's game over. So that is Space Panic. It's a competent port. If you like Space Panic, I can't really complain about it. If you don't like Space Panic, you'll hate it. It may have censored you posting Booby Kids, because I didn't even get to approve that or not. Tremendous. Apparently Booby Kids is not allowed as a column to YouTube. Hooray. Okay, so not whore, hooray. Naughty Boy. Now this, I have to say, is one of the more ambitious ports. We did play this on a stream a while ago. Now, when I say ambitious, I don't necessarily mean good. I mean, this doesn't work as a tile-based game whatsoever. least personally, that's how I feel about it. The music's not so bad though. Got a good rendition of a classical tune. Oh yeah, we can switch. But it doesn't control well. Welcome to hell. Yeah, it's not a game that should have been turned into a game with tile-based movement, to be quite honest. So this is maybe a bit too ambitious. And you have to get the exact right tile. Rough proximity does not count. It does try and do a lot of things. Even the arcade original, I kind of feel maybe doesn't quite work as a game. But when you turn it into choppy movement, it fails kind of badly. You know, it does make me wonder if game 13, which is the next missing one, is not front line, but maybe something like Pop Flamer, because clearly at this point, Casio were working with Galaga. And Pop Flamer is a kind of, well, very similar game on similar hardware that, according to Aussie Guy in the last stream, was originally developed by the same people, and I can kind of see them wanting to do a Pop Flamer port. But you know, according to sources, 13 is probably frontline. But who knows? We'll probably never know. So yeah, you hold down the fire button, and the ball you're firing, what bomb you're firing, goes forward or whatever direction you press it for as long as you hold the button down. Pop Flame might be slightly better. Yeah, maybe. I don't mind this, but it's clearly incredibly limited by being tile based. And having to have such precise aiming. So you can fire that. You can fire as far. You can fire really far. I appear to have destroyed some trees. Do the sound channels have volume control? If they do, it's not emulated. All they've got is mono speaker, one channel. I don't know. As you can imagine, there aren't many resources for this system because it costs a fortune. I don't really know why the game is called Naughty Boy in the first place either. I mean, you appear to be destroying enemy or pirate castles, fortresses. Doesn't seem very naughty to me, to be honest. Unfortunately, Wolf has it's the fact it moves by tiles. I mean, the actual sprites themselves, yeah, they're pretty nice looking, but everything moves in 8x8 blocks, and that makes it quite bad. We'll play this live, then we'll move on, I think. The original is much better. The original is a very overlooked game. Even by me, I've overlooked it many times. Never really spent the time to learn it. So it's maybe a surprising one to see ported. You can see, destroy the environment. A little bit, unless that's a glitch. Yeah, you can destroy the environment, you're correct. So there we go. So, you know, it does get that from the arcade, from what I can see. So you can destroy. Maybe that's why you're a naughty boy, because you can destroy everything. But only if you're in the right position. Let's burn down the forest. Yeah, anyway, saying naughty boy, maybe a bit too ambitious. So game 13 is the missing one that said by some to possibly be frontline. Maybe not released, maybe just very rare. So jumping to game 14, we have another Jellico port. And this is why I think 13 could potentially be a Jellico game 2. Because we have Dirty Chameleon, which you may know better as just Chameleon. Again, I don't know why they've added the word dirty to the title, but this is a port of the arcade game Chameleon. List of games Kawa Denshi Agaiken developed: Safari Rally, Phoenix, Pleiades, Exerion, Naughty Boy and Pop Flamer. Not a bad little lineup really for a company nobody ever mentions or talks about, Aussie guy. But yes, Chameleon, or Dirty Chameleon is a game that seems to want to be Chucky Egg without being Chucky Egg. Yes, you can. You walk along the beams, you eat the eggs, you can walk along, you can stick your tongue out and reach a bit further. Or you can just die repeatedly like I am done. Apparently so, Smedis. There are lots of different claims about who developed Phoenix, but that does seem to be one of the ones that I've seen more recently as being, yeah, they developed it. I mean, Taito considers Phoenix to be their own game at this point, hence why it appears in quite a few Taito collections. But I don't know, it's one of those games with quite a messed up history. Yeah, I'm saying, I don't know. It is something I've read a few times now. Yeah, exactly. Most people, Amstar often get credit for it, but then Amstar will just say, "Oh, some small company in Japan," and then we'll get other people saying Taito own it. Other people say Tekken own it because of player ads, but this reminds you of Game & Watch Panorama. I mean, there's a bit too much movement on the screen for a panorama, but I can see maybe where you're coming from with that. Again, it's all tile-based movement. If you use your tongue downwards, you don't get pulled down. But if you use your tongue upwards, you can go up the stage. Both buttons do the same thing. The Pachinko game, that was more of a Game & Watch, yeah. Apparently you can eat chickens just as you can eat eggs. Deadly chickens and tennis balls, yes. And obviously the eggs hatch into chickens, as you saw there. Basically clear the stage for eggs and chickens to win. While being a comedian, because, you know, that tends to be what comedians do, is eat chickens. I don't really know. Is that what comedians do? Hey Andrea, sorry I didn't say hello there. I've only just seen your message looking up the chat. I hope you're doing well. Good to see you. So yes, this is the last game on the PV-1000, because the next game is, well, Mahjong. And we are 1.5 hours into the stream. So yeah, I don't think we're going to do 3 hours today, because the PV-2000 doesn't even have as many games as the 1000. Well, it's always good to see. I mean, I know people have real lives and can be quite busy, so whenever you can drop in, you are more than welcome. It's always good to see you. Karadenshi was mentioned by Jellico founder Yoshiaki Kanazawa in the book Jellico Archives. It's nice that these stories are coming out these days, because otherwise a lot of them will be lost. And say a lot of people from back in the day are sadly no longer with us, because it really has been that long. So there is the potential for some of these stories to just be lost to time. So the problem with this one is maybe it's not obvious on screen, but the controls are very stiff, and since the enemies all move in tiles, they close in on your position incredibly quickly. Chameleon and chicken, yes, nature's greatest rivalry. Almost as great as I think it's rabbit versus ice cream in some of those plug and play games, Bob. I mean, you know, that famous battle of the rabbit and the ice cream that you always read about. Anyway, the audio again is doing me in a little bit here, and the controls are a bit laggy. It's not bad, but the tile movement doesn't help it. So, I mean, after these games, and we'll put Excite Mahjong on just to show it. But after playing all these games, I think somehow the first game, Pooyan, was the best game on the PV-1000. So yeah, Excite Mahjong. The arcade version was developed by Tosei for Jellico. The arcade version is pretty good fun. It's one of those overlooked games. Look, we can select Mahjong tiles. I don't know how to play Mahjong. I'm sure it actually plays like Mahjong should play. But, it's Mahjong. Maybe somebody will get naked if I win, but I'm probably not going to win because I don't know how to play Mahjong. And also, I don't think they do on these games. Yes, Mahjong. So that concludes the PV-1000. And again, I think they're quite interesting ports. I'm quite happy to play the Pooyan port. I thought that was really good. The Tutankahm port, yeah, I enjoyed that. Digital port, not perfect, but I enjoyed it. Fighting Bug, a bit simple but fun. And beyond that, they started to get a bit questionable. Space Panic was alright. Naughty Boy didn't, you know, the tile-based mechanics held it back. Warp, the audio was annoying. Turpin was too simple. Dirty Chameleon, again, the tile-based video wasn't the best. But they're interesting ports to see. A lot of companies didn't take credit back in the day, Wolfaz. I mean, even today it happens. A lot of people who develop things don't get credit. But yeah, Pooyan, which was the first game on the system apparently, actually made the system look like it had a lot of potential. It sort of worked around the clear tile limits. I guess it had the, you know, tiles that of the sprites, the main sprites in each position, so it didn't look like it was tile based. It worked as a game. And Tutankahm kind of developed the character sprite, and then they just got really lazy and just everything started moving around the tiles and didn't look great. It's an interesting little system, and you know, it's good to see the ports with the gameplay intact, but the hardware was quite limited. You can see why it was cancelled, Bob. Yeah, because the companies would have had to develop ports specifically for that unit, which would have been at cost, and it didn't sell that well and wasn't that capable. But as a result, it makes the ports quite interesting to see, because they're different to the ports you find on other systems in Japan. But they're a little bit rough. You can still enjoy them. They're still perfectly enjoyable versions of the games in most cases. And some of them are easier than the arcade. Say the fighting bug was really easy, so you could give that to a kid and they could happily play that, probably more so than the original arcade Ladybug. And yeah, I still don't know why they put out things like Pachinko UFO, but there you go. So now we will move on to the PV-2000, which means I'll bring up this screen. The 2000 looked a bit like this. It was a computer. It used the same joysticks as the 1000, but it was a computer, and it had, say, the same video chip as the MSX. So you see, you got your keyboard there. Unfortunately, due to the plastics involved, plastics it was made from, it's becoming quite rare these days, because most of them have deteriorated into this kind of condition. Say all the key stuff is worn off, and they just look nasty. I don't know if they still work in that condition, but yeah, getting a PV-2000 in good condition now is actually quite tricky. Yeah, the Famicom came out 3 months before and was clearly a lot better. You're right, Bob. But yeah, the PV-2000s are starting to look like this. So it's that whole plastic degradation stuff, and it's just nasty. It's ruining all the systems. The cartridges for this one, we've got a picture of those. Again, these just came from the internet. You can find these images online. They're not my images. The cartridges for this one looked a bit like this. So, you know, very similar. There you go, you see. But standard stuff for the period. So what do the actual games look like? YouTube is removing the dislike counter, Big Jord. I'm not sure that's a good idea, because you know, my channel's not the most popular. I'll get like about 30-40 likes on a video and maybe 1 or 2 dislikes from the usual trolls, but you can tell by the ratio that it's you know, what I'm doing is genuine and honest, whereas, you know, some big scams you can get 5,000 likes and 7,000 dislikes, and you'll know it's a scam because of all the dislikes. And without the dislike counter, it'll just like the scam videos are far more popular and far better. So I think getting rid of the dislikes is a bit of a problem, but that's their choice. And hey, Costado, welcome. You are just in time for us to start moving on to the PV-2000, which is the one that shares the video chip with the MSX. And our first game, unfortunately, because I still don't know how to play it, is a sequel to the final game we saw on the PV-1000. Here is Excite Mahjong 2. Spite dislikes, yes. It's quite funny because in terms of, you know, YouTube counting popularity, they all count the same way. So yes, if releasing Mahjong as the final game on PV-1000 was enough, apparently it was the first one on PV-2000. Yeah, criticism is important. You learn a lot more about something from negative reviews in general than you do from the positive reviews. It's always important if you're buying a product to look at the flaws people have found rather than the reviews that just completely ignore them. Although I know YouTube's not reviews in the same sense, it's important. You can't have balance unless you've got positive and negative. Rewind was cancelled, or they're replacing it with an 8-hour Hey stream. They can just stream all my old content if they want. So yeah, it's another Mahjong game. I think we've seen enough of it. Now, we'll move on to, I believe, the first Taito port we've had, which is, again, I don't know why PV-2000 is marked as not working, much like the PV-1000 games that are marked as not working. Maybe cassette or something doesn't work at a cassette, but the games seem to work. So Frontline, which is an early Taito game. And this came before the likes of Commando and Ikari Warriors. So to me that's kind of interesting, because both SNK and Capcom tried to claim credit for the idea. But so this is going to look. These are going to look a lot like MSX games because it shares the same video chip. Now the original of this had quite difficult controls, but obviously this is just using the same joystick, because the PV-2000 did use the same joysticks as the PV-1000, which is probably the only thing they got right. And this was also a short-lived system, and I think it's because it basically looks like an MSX but wasn't MSX compatible. And what's the point in releasing a system with the MSX video chip and a Z80 if you're not just going to release an MSX? And I think that's probably what Casio realised in the end. Is there any reason it doesn't list the video hardware? I don't really know. I mean, the whole startup screen shouldn't be taken as sort of like absolute fact. Things like the PV-1000, I think it's an all-in-one video and sound chip, and it just lists the sound section. A lot of these system on chips will list things in all sections. It's oh yeah, you do have your grenades. I forgot that. It's probably kind of handy if you're trying to blow up a tank. Or is that a tank I'm getting? I can't remember now. Yeah, the Where's Wally Waldo game by Sega that nobody talks about actually has English text and an English logo in the ROMs, even though, as far as we can tell, no English version was released. And hey Evie, welcome to the stream. I did message you on Facebook saying I was doing a stream, but maybe you didn't see it. But welcome. Yeah, they do look more spaceship-like, killer octagons than tanks. That's what got me at first. But I believe they're meant to be tanks. Hope work was alright for you, Evie. But I'll catch you after the stream. I think it's going to be quite a short stream because we're already on the second system, and it's got even fewer games than the first system. But yeah, so this was before Commando and Ikari Warriors, as far as I know, the original Frontline. So I think you have to credit that idea as much to Taito as SNK or Capcom. It's obviously not quite as challenging, although this port does have far fewer enemies. And a bit of slowdown for some reason. So I don't know if I can get in this somehow, or if I'm missing it. Oh, there we go. Now I'm in the tank. Oh, the tank got blown up. Second fire button gets you in the tank, which makes sense, really. The killer octagon tank. Have you ever seen a tank with this layout of vehicles? Yeah, that might be why people speculate that the final PV-1000 game was meant to be this. Although if you look at some of the other PV-2000 games, they also don't use the sprites, I think, from memory. So plenty of early MSX games didn't. It looks better than the MSX versions, as you guys says. I've not played the MSX versions. I mean, it's playable. It's a bit slow paced, but I think it's more interesting just as a game in the first place because, say, Taito was doing this before SNK or Capcom. Oh, that's my tank. Oh, it was my tank. It's blown up now. Oh, I get another tank. No shortage of tanks around here, I have to say. People just leave them lying around. Oh. Just to get at this and bomb that. There we go. PV-7. That's just the MSX clone, isn't it, Bob? It uses a trackball, Big Jord. There are plenty of other games using trackballs. Maybe it uses a compatible trackball, but both are Sega, so that would make sense. Plus, you know, trackball interface chips tended to be quite common. But we've got another life. Yes, we have another life. And I'd lost that extra life. So yeah, Frontline. People have said that the last PV-1000 cartridge was meant to be Frontline, the game 13, which would have been released between the two Galaga games. Could have been. I still wonder if those cartridges were released just in limited numbers, because the word prototyping on release tends to get thrown around just for limited number of releases. And say, if we look at the Dragon 32 stream, the publisher figures for some of those games said they sold 20 copies, maybe 30. So some games didn't sell many copies, and so might be considered unreleased these days on other systems. It's just sort of what happened. So maybe one day they'll show up, maybe they won't. I know the same has happened with the cassette vision recently, where the cartridges have now been dumped on the original cassette vision. So the MCU has been dumped, and it'd be quite nice to get the emulation working in that. I might just software list them for the sake of it, but it's the CPU is kind of Game & Watch like with non-linear program count and the like, so it's a bit of a nightmare. But I don't know, Sean did work out how to dump those, so maybe one day in the near or maybe not so near future we'll see original cassette system emulation, at which point I will cover them all, because again that's a fascinating system to look at. You want a trackball stream? I'll be playing lots of Incredible Technologies golf games. Mendes, that's a bad idea. Galaga. Now this looks pretty much like the MSX versions, or the SG-1000 version, or any other version of Galaga using this video chip, to be honest. But yes, you could easily mistake me playing this now for me playing this on the SG-1000. It's Galaga. It's nice and smooth. It plays perfectly fine. But you've probably seen a version of Galaga like this many times before. You know what games to play with your trackball. I don't know. Since I don't own a trackball, a lot of trackball games are really tricky to play. Centipede, Millipede, obviously Golden Tee, and all that nonsense. Rampart? That's an alright trackball game. You can give me a list of trackball games to try and play if you want, but just most of them aren't going to work well on a keyboard and mouse. Why is this chip so prevalent? I guess it must have been a reasonable price point, and they knew developers were familiar with it, and they knew they could get easy ports because they used it. I don't know. Maybe it just offered what was needed. The SG-1000 port was done at Namco. I mean, I'm going to guess most of these were then. I mean, this says copyright Namco. I don't know if... Well, they all say copyright the original manufacturer, don't they? But this feels just like the SG-1000 port to me. Yeah, it sounds good. It's got the I think it's got the same sound chip as the SG-1000 actually. SN76489A. Very much say it's another one of those clone hardware types that is very much like an MSX, very much like the SG-1000. No. Oh yeah, Simpsons Bowling was a trackball one, but again it's pretty terrible. You bought arcade trackball for $10, 2 of them. That's not bad if you could hook them up and get them working, Andrea. It's already 10 times better than the previous console. Yeah, to be fair, as the port goes, this is on the same level as the Pooyan game we looked at the start of the other one. It's a decent port of Galaga. It's got all the mechanics. It's got the ship capture mechanic as you saw earlier. If I just waited and got my ship captured, which maybe I should do because it's kind of an important part of Galaga. But again, many of the unofficial ports just miss entirely. That would require not just dying. Oh, I've got no lives left. That's a bad idea. That means I'm dead. Yeah, I should look at you. If you're going to use the ship capture thing, always look at your life counter first. Otherwise, you'll just die when your ship gets captured. You hook them to Logitech mouse boards. That makes sense? Good old mouse board one. So that was the amateur mistake with the Galaga, where you go, oh yeah, I know this mechanic, and then you just don't do it right. Oh. Well. Yeah, you hacked up the original mouse and connected the trackball there. That makes sense. That's what a lot of people do. I do know how to play Galaga, honestly. No, I've done it again when I've got no lives left. Let's not do that again. Yeah, game over on ship counter is if you're not paying attention, as I'm not right now because I'm trying to read the chat. It's like, yeah, you think you know this game, but if you're not careful, that's what will happen to you. And it's nice that they've got it implemented, because again, I've played Galaga ports that just miss it. They miss the whole capture mechanic. And it's not Galaga without the capture mechanic, I'm sorry. I have to get across the screen pretty quickly to actually get captured though. Not going to do it now, is it? No, not going to do it now. Oh, there we go. Hey Evie, I did reply to you earlier, but unfortunately, well, I don't get the extra. I get the extra ship. There we go. It wasn't the same colour. There we go. I've got my double ship. You missed Dig Dug earlier, Evie. You missed the port of Dig Dug. But yeah, this is Galaga. The novelty of Galaga is you have this double ship mechanic. If your ship gets captured, then you rescue your ship. You do have to not shoot your own ship though, otherwise you just lose the lives. So there's 2 steps to it. 1, get your ship captured when it's not your last life. 2, rescue your ship from the enemy without shooting it. But if you do mess up, it just costs you an extra life, because double firepower, double lives, neat little mechanic. You can't help working. No, it's alright. I mean, you know, it's good to have a job. Hopefully, you know, I can't talk anything about it yet now, but hopefully I'll have a bit of money coming in soon. But I'm not allowed to say anything yet until it's all signed and sealed. Hey, didn't everybody love the Pachinko UFO game? Casio thought it was worth releasing it also on the PV-2000. It's got music now. And it's got a little dial at the side that shows you how much you've actually pressed the button down. But it seems to have a lower maximum number of balls on screen, probably because of the sprite limits. I think you can have like 4, 5. It's an upgraded version that's not just got tile-based movement, but is still the same blooming awful Pachinko game. It actually looks better, but it's still just a completely pointless. Look, the actual pieces animate, the wheels turn, the balls move smoothly, the little meter you turn at the side animates. But it's still utterly pointless. And I still feel like this when I play it. I'm just going to play it like this. Wow, I completed the first level on this one. Look, it's the same thing again. Just now it's level 2. And there really is not much in the way of skill. You just hold the button down and it goes further. It made it go from a minus 1200 out of 10 to a solid 3 out of 10. It's better than the PV-1000 version, but yes, it's still very boring. You're right, Aussie guy. I never understood why they did home computer versions of that thing. Because you're not winning any money and it's just luck. Now, Pooyan on the PV-1000, the first game, we concluded was the best PV-1000 game. It was also released on the PV-2000. And better than the Famicom version. I've not played the Famicom version before. Now, a lot of these PV-2000s have the games have this little jingle before they start, which takes forever. It moves smoother. Everything animates more smoothly. The nuts look like nuts instead of poos. Otherwise, I don't know. To me, this doesn't quite have the same charm as the PV-1000 version. You need to be 60 plus and be a chain smoker to truly appreciate the skill, finesse and beauty of Pachinko. Also, you notice the sprite limit on this one because the parts of the sprites vanish, whereas the PV-1000 didn't have sprites. It just had tiles. So I guess everybody who played the PV-1000, 2000 Pachinko games back in the day is probably no longer with us. Because if they were a chain smoker, 30, 40 years ago, they're probably not in the best health. Which may explain why nobody ever asks about those games being emulated. No, the blue background's ugly. The sprite limits are off-putting. I don't know. It's I really preferred the PV-1000 version. I mean, for all we've said bad about the PV-1000 in some of the other games, the Pooyan port was excellent. This is uglier, smoother maybe, but uglier. To me, this is a downgrade. It doesn't feel as fun. Let's say the sprite limits with things disappearing is really distracting. You see it at the top every time the sprites come across, and you see it at other times. To me, it feels like a downgrade. it does. It just feels like a cheap MSX port rather than having the charm that PV-1000 version had. You see, you don't see some of the crocodiles at the top. Or wolves, not crocodiles. They look like crocodiles. Wolves, aren't they? They're wolves. Until this is based on the MSX version. Yeah, I'd say the hardware is very similar. They look like crocodiles. They're wolves, aren't they? They're meant to be wolves. It's just not so much fun either. So we'll move on from Pooyan. We played a better version earlier. And we will look at one we've looked at on stream before. And this one is actually very good. We had a look at this quite recently. This is Mr. Packn, also known as Super Pac-Man. Again, as we played this recently, I don't want to spend too long on it. But this is a genuinely good port of Super Pac-Man. But yeah, if anybody knows why the PV-1000 and 2000 are marked, well, PV-2000 marked as not working, and most of the PV-1000 games are marked as not working, please let me know, because as far as I know, they play as they're meant to. Maybe there's some other aspects of the 2000 that's missing. It lost its original flavour, you're right. That's what I mean. I like these games that do have their original twist. They feel like something different, something you couldn't get elsewhere. And that Pooyan port just felt like, you know, any other version. As does this to a degree, but still, this is a solid port that is actually fun and holds up well. So yeah. A bit of Mr. Packn. I don't know why they renamed it. I said this last time we played it. I don't know why it's Mr. Packn on this system, Power Pack on another system. But it is Super Pac-Man. It is a good port of Super Pac-Man. A playable port. Very similar to, say, the other ports on MSX-like hardware. But that doesn't make it play any worse. Yeah, Super Pac-Man Mitchell. A nice little port of said game. Maybe not very original because, like I said, if you've played other versions of this with different names, it's basically the same port with a different name. But that doesn't make it bad. Have used up the power pills. Oh dear. Well, the super pills. Still a boot left. We're only going to play a single credit on this because you've seen it before, I've played it before. It just happens to be a good port. There we go. 1600 points. The Coleco homebrew version retains the original title. Is it still based on this, or is it a completely original port? Oops, lost a life. You mean the Pac-Man 256 Pac-Man Connect and Play one, Big Jord? I think that's just a case of emulating the sound on the later Sun Plus chips, if that's something you're talking about. The one that's just emulation based. Yeah, the emulation based one that's just running quite a bad emulator, if that's the one that is being talked about. I think we could probably get sound running it quite easily just by comparing those family sport units between the later Sunplus ones and the earlier ones. But since they're just badly emulated versions of the games on that plug and play, my motivation is quite low. The homebrew version is based on the PV-2000 version. So based on this version, I might have to look at that one another time, Aussie guy. But yeah, Mr. Packn. So right now for quite an interesting one. This is Rakugaki Special. This does not appear to be an arcade port. In fact, I wonder if this is actually a port of a handheld game, because it feels like one. You fire high for the UFOs, you move in different positions, you fire low for the things on the ground. Very simple. You move up and down and you fire high or low. And you dodge out the way of things that fired at you. Like that. You want to sell off your Lexi book. I mean, we still need to emulate the Lexi books that are based on similar hardware to the Hyperscan. You know, the high-res ones. Unfortunately, I probably need to actually get another unit and write some code to try and extract the internal boot ROM so we can emulate that, so that I can run the actual card that loads the SD card code, or CF card code as it is. So yeah, so this is very simple. You can't move left or right. You're just firing at things, avoiding things. So it feels like an LCD game. I know Casio did a lot of LCD games, so I'm wondering if this is a video version of one of their LCD games. Because this is, unlike most of the games on the system, this is not an arcade port. I'd have to have a look, because we don't emulate that many of the Casio ones. I don't know if they're easy to dump, or just not been sourced yet, or if they're difficult to dump. But we don't emulate many Casio LCD games. Unfortunately, a lot of LCD games are incredibly difficult to emulate. We don't have to dump them. But this does feel like one. So it might be one of Casio's more famous ones that sold well. Because I can't see this being anything else, personally. Yeah, I imagine it's meant to be slow because it's trying to be say an LCD game or something. I don't think this was originally developed with video in mind. You can only fire one bullet at a time, high or low, and then you have to dodge the shots. It is that simple. That is the game. But in that sense, it's probably one of the more interesting titles on the systems, because it's a game, not just Mahjong or Pachinko. You can also go down. You can duck. You can't fire when you duck to anything else. It says remain. Yeah, that number of lives, Aussie guy. I think. Yeah, lives, not enemies remaining. Oops, bullet still got me. There might be multiple levels. I think I've seen screenshots with a different background. But I really don't know. I should have ducked that one or stayed where I was. No. Oh, I was okay. Got you ground, alien. But yeah, it's clearly some kind of Game & Watch type thing, isn't it? And it shows different things there. We've got a choice of 1, 2 or 3. Apparently I can play with some different theme. Oh no, now I've got the basic editor. Okay. Apparently I can enter the basic edit mode. Honestly, I really don't know what I've just done. I've put man instead of MAME. Behold my fantastic artwork. There you go, it says MAME. That would explain the Rakugaki part. Yeah, there's a similar mode in the basic, which we'll see later. But that's kind of interesting. But we'll move on to Roc'n Rope, which is... We're back to Konami arcade ports. Casio Roc'n Rope 83 Konami. MAME. Load MAME. Maybe. So... That's not how you play Roc'n Rope. Remember when I covered the Burning Cavern in a video? The magnet system game? Well, this has a similar fire ropes mechanic. I thought you could go through the doors as well, but I can't remember how to play Roc'n Rope, to be quite honest with you. Don't fall off. Hey the Ogre, thank you for joining. So it's good to see you. You're on a break, are you? You're at work again today then. So this has just been, say, an old Casio console computer stream. Probably going to be a short one. We've not got much more to cover actually. We've got 4 more games I think. Oh. Now this again feels a bit more dated. This feels more like one of the PV-1000 games. It doesn't feel like it's moving in sprite tiles. I don't know. I've never been a fan of Roc'n Rope in the first place, to be honest. The falling speed is very quick, yes. Gravity. This game has super gravity. Also, I look a bit like Mario. It's a nice looking port. I'm not sure it plays that well. So it moves in tiles. It feels like it moves in tiles. And it feels a bit clunky to me. But that might just be me. I'm perfectly willing to admit that is just how I feel about this game. Maybe it's I don't know how to kick things off. They seem like sprites judging by the colours, but they move in a very rough way. I don't understand what the mechanic is to knock them off. Have you not played the original, Bob? The original, maybe you're not streaming the original. The original's not bad. Never been a game I've really got into, but I can appreciate it for what it is. I don't get it. Yeah, it's alright. I think I'm going to move on. I mean, if you like Roc'n Rope, yeah, otherwise I find that really frustrating, to be quite honest. Now, this one's curious. Ski Command. It appears to be another original game for the system. Roc'n Rope was Takuro Fujiwara. Last game he designed while he was at Konami before he left for Capcom. Again, Aussie guy with the facts. Is Roc'n rope based on lock and load? No, Wolfhouse, no. No, it is not. Now, I did for a while wonder if Ski Command was based on an arcade game of another name, but I don't think it is. I think it is just a Casio original. You've got Casio banners. Apparently, when you're skiing, the main thing you do is shoot black snowballs at other people who are skiing uphill. Did you design by Commando? I'm sure Aussie guy could tell you. Although it would kind of make sense if he did. I see the similarities. That guy did a loop in midair. I did a loop on the ground. So yes, not an arcade port. I mean, it does feel a bit like River Patrol and other Orc games and things like that. You know, the hack of that. What was it? The ski one that was a hack of that. I can't remember what it's called. James Bond Simulator, possibly, or maybe it's Archer. Maybe it's Archer. Obviously, much better than James Bond. I don't know. I just remember the ski episode in Archer, to be honest. There's so many bad James Bond games. The helicopters have got little shadows too, so you know they're not on the ground. Which is important for helicopters, because being on the ground is kind of a problem if you're in a helicopter. Honestly, I don't know. I was expecting a ski game, and we've got a shoot 'em up. Where you can jump, by the way. You can jump. I don't know if jumping has any purpose. Maybe you can shoot the helicopters while you're jumping. Maybe you can jump over bullets. But you can jump. Steep slope sliders. This is not. Pattern clear. He did do Bionic Commando. Ah. Oh, look, now it's turned into... I don't know what, but we're avoiding vector-based shapes in 3D. In Command 2. Or not avoiding them, if you're me. Does jump work in this stage? Because I think it's kind of important. Silverland, that's the one I was thinking of. River Patrol bootleg. It's Aussie guy. Eat your heart out, ski free. We'll play a bit more Ski Command. Jump. Move left and right so slowly. But yeah, is this on the MSX too? I don't know. I don't really play much MSX, so... Or is this literally and completely a PV-2000 exclusive? You think it's James Bond 2, do you, Mitchell? An accurate look into your nightmares. I think I get points for jumping over... Well, I don't get points for crashing into the trees. I spoke too soon. Yeah, based on an arcade game that doesn't exist. So, I was kind of expecting to be like a port of Jalico's Parallel Turn or something like that, but it really isn't. It's Action Ski. The game that didn't make it onto Action 52. That turret is in Iraq. Not Iraq, Iraq. You can shoot the helicopters if you jump. Okay. So that's kind of interesting. I don't get any points for jumping over those trees, so I don't know what I got points for before. January, just James Bond. There'd be enough for like one stream, Leoka, and I'd hate every minute of it, but yeah, maybe. Because I can't even play GoldenEye, because the N64 emulation in MAME is too slow. The only good James Bond game that might be suitable for a retro stream would run at about 20% speed. I'm not even going to do it the second stage again, am I? Apparently I've got that high score. Oh, I'll beat the... Does the second pattern literally just start at 1,000 points? No, you can't jump in this stage. It's just dodge stuff. React super quickly. None of the buttons work at this point. This is just the kill you off stage. There's an MSX one, but it might be different. I might have to look at it another time. Ski Command! Woo! I mean, the logo's colourful and the title screen's got more on it than just text, but Ski Command. Remember how good the Super Cobra port was on the PV-1000? We also have Super Cobra on the PV-2000. Is it any better? No. If anything, it might. I mean, the bombs move correctly, but it still moves in tiles and is rendered in tiles. And yeah, this is kind of bad. I mean, to be fair, it does look more like Super Cobra. The MSX1 looks nicer. Maybe they refined it. But come on, you can do a better Super Cobra port than this with the video hardware you've got. This is not acceptable. It's bigger and it's chunkier than the original port on the PV-1000, but still. You messed it up the first time. Why did you mess it up again? Exactly R09. It's bad, but in a different way. A different kind of bad. So again, for some reason I don't hate these systems. I quite like the PV-1000, PV-2000 for what they do offer. But you have to look at them and think, you could have done more. It moves smooth on a system without sprites yet. I don't think they're using any of the sprites here at all. Literally, I don't think there is a sprite in use on this system, which, despite the system having sprites. Yeah, maybe they're using the sprite for the score or something stupid. I honestly don't know. Again, I'm assuming there's an MSX version of this. Is it better? Is it worse? I really don't know. It does follow the arcade level order, yes. It's more faithful. It feels like I'm playing Super Cobra, unlike the other one. Just not a very good version of Super Cobra. The hardware is clearly capable of better than this. That's the PV-1000 version. Yeah, they were working with limited hardware. Here they've got the MSX VDP. This could have been so much better. The pew pew sounds good. Yeah, I agree, Bob. The sound effects are much better here. I'm no longer getting a migraine from the sound effects of the PV-1000, which were kind of bad, assuming the emulation's good. But you see, so far though, every game I've played appears to have run fine. I don't know why the PV-2000 is marked as not working unless there is a fundamental issue with something like tape or disc, but nothing is on tape or disc, so I don't know. Same with the games that marked unsupported on the 1000, they all played fine. They might have been ugly and annoying, but they played fine. Yes, pew pew pew, pew pew pew. I do like to look at these obscure systems. And again, if I had one back in the day, I would have probably spent a fair bit of time playing something like this. But if we're honest, they should have used sprites. I'm moving in tiles. I am a tile. I'm clearly a tile. Why? The MSX version follows the PV-1000 version. Oh dear. Why would I talk about calculators or keyboards? Well, if Phil eventually submits his Casio Loopy driver, we could have been talking about the Loopy and printing tickets and other random nonsense, because that was the most patronising system ever. It's like, we're going to make a system for girls. You don't need any games, you just need tickets and stickers and other things. It's like, okay. If there is any tape software that could be added to the software list, it probably should be, but I'm not aware of any. There is a basic in the software list, which we'll come to very shortly, because let's be honest, that's the last good game we're going to play, and that wasn't great. Let's move on. So this stream is probably not going to last much longer. The last game, where it looks more like a Nintendo menu, is you can play it as a bet game, so I don't know if I want to do that. Oh, push attack naught to start the game. I don't know what attack naught is. The missiles on the ground on the original were at times before they took off. Yeah, they were. So what do I want to bet? Probably bet nothing, but okay. I don't think I bet on anything, but who cares? Let's see if I win anything with my bet of nothing. Now, as a kid, I was quite impressed by these horse racing gambling games with all the physical models as a kid, where they actually went around a massive track that circled a good portion of the arcade, the original Super Derby type things. Or Royal Ascot? Not Super Derby. Super Derby is the playing what game. I think they're probably just the Royal Ascot machines, weren't they? With the big screens, the actual physical horses. And they were quite impressive. But again, bringing that to a home system doesn't really make any sense. I mean, there was another mode which was play mode, which I guess you actually get to race. Select Joy 1, push attack 1. There are good horse racing games out there. I mean, I quite like the Neo Geo ones, and Gallop Racer. But yeah, I'm horse 2, the pink one, because of course I'm the pink one. If I press the button, I, abuse the horse, which is how horse racing works. I've got a jump button too, if I want to do that, even though there's nothing to jump over at the moment. The box art is robot jockeys on robot horses. I suppose that's one way to make it look like you're not hurting horses. Unfortunately, it's not much good, is it? If you like this type of thing in a very primitive form, where half the game is a bet game, sure. Up to 4 players. 1984 Casio. That is why I turn off all those shortcuts in Windows, Big Jord. One of the first things I do when I reinstall Windows is turn off all those annoying shortcuts that trigger things like that. Anyway, that was Exciting Jockey, which was about as exciting Mahjong. And our final entry is Basic, where we can choose Basic, Picture, 4-line Basic, which sounds like a challenge. How many games can you write in 4 lines? Picture or animation? Of course, we can choose Picture, which I think we saw this earlier. I'm pretty sure we saw this earlier. We can write MAME again. But look, we can change colours by pressing buttons. apparently it doesn't actually change the colour, because you have to press something else to change the colour. I honestly don't know. I can change what colour it flashes. Maybe, possibly. Honestly, I don't know. Change the colour up there. So, I could draw a face like on the previous Dragon streams where I did Face Maker, but I could just write MAME again and call it quits, because we have exhausted all the software actually we're looking at, as in we've played every game that was released to the systems that is dumped. Are there other games out there? Who knows? Are they going to be affordable? Probably not. Yeah, I'm not developing a full basic game in a basic language I don't know in real time, Bob. But we can do a very long... We can stylize this MAME a bit. I should probably use this for the logo for the next stream, shouldn't I? Just to show how fantastic MAME is. And how much of a fantastic artist I am. Maybe if I do what I've done with every other piece of art and just Photoshop it to the point you can't tell what it is, it will work. But you see, MAME. I can even write haze, although that requires diagonals, which is not going to be fun. But this is where the stream is going to end. You realise that. I have no more games to play, nothing else to show off. There's no fancy homebrew software that is fantastic and needs showing off for these systems, because the system is a bit too obscure for anybody who actually developed anything. Although I'd be quite interested in seeing what people could make out of it, but so far that's not happened. Which really have to go like this, which is not fun. Yeah, often you do have to remap keys with MAME Big Jort. It's just one of those things. There's no perfect default mapping for anything, to be honest. You get so many obscure setups that MAME just basically has to do something and go, right, beyond this you're on your own. There we go. Apparently I have made an image and I've scored the top of it off the screen because fantastic paint program this is not. Oh, we've got MAME has. I believe if I remap the controls, because it doesn't map anything to... Oh, I've put it on num plus, so press plus, get the full screen, and I can screenshot it. No, that's not screenshotting it. And there we go. And alright, we can change the big video view, which is where I'm going to end the stream, to be quite honest. And we can admire my work of art all outside of the emulator. There we go. So look, this has been the main Haze stream. This has been the PV-1000 and PV-2000 special, as I will demonstrate by moving this out of the way. Thank you to everybody who's joined. I know it's not been as long as some. We're on about 2.5 hours, but that's all the software there is for these systems. And while I could have covered the arcade games too, that would have detracted from what I wanted to show, which was these systems which, yeah, admittedly, the games are kind of bad, but enjoyable. I don't know. I've always had a soft spot for them, so I hope you've enjoyed this, and thank you to everybody who's been here. Casio developed YY Jockey Gating, didn't they? You're correct, Aussie guy. That is one of the few Casio arcade games. I should have probably mentioned that. It's interesting fact you have there, as many of yours are. So that is another one I should play on stream, actually, because it's kind of obscure. Anyway, yes, RO9, Pachinko, Mahjong and horse racing. Casio had all the old Japanese man games covered. They did. And thank you, Marcello, to you too. Oh, sorry. Hello, Marcello. You are joining just as I'm ending the stream, but thank you for joining. If you've been watching the stream earlier, thank you. If not, it is probably the time to sort of rewind, because we are just finishing now. So if you want to see sort of old Casio computer console games, what we've just been doing for the last 2.5 hours is that. It's an interesting system, isn't it, Mr. Outer Heaven? So I might play the Where's Waldo game on another stream, Big Jort. Obviously this one is not the stream for arcade games, but I do need to do a proper arcade game stream soon, so I may do that on a stream in a bit, because I kind of like that actually. I think it's not a bad Sega game. I do wonder if there was a location test in English, because as I say, there are full English titles and text in the ROM, just they're not referenced anywhere, so you can't access them. But anyway, yes, thank you everybody, and I encourage you to go out and try these games, see if you enjoy them yourself. Understand that they're going to be quite limited compared to some of the other versions, but at the same time they're interesting in a different way than the ports of some of these games we've got over here. They sort of capture more of the arcade feel. They clearly were done with references to the arcade games. And then we saw 1 or 2 original games like that Ski Command that weren't arcade ports. So, yeah, they're interesting little systems. I wouldn't pay the actual obscene prices people are paying for them right now. They're not worth that. But in terms of a bit of history, why not have a look at it? Anyway, take care everybody, and I'll hopefully see you on the next one.